experiences that you are faced with. Those experiences, at the time that you are faced with it, you have a choice of choosing the next level way or the way of the vehicle to respond. Now, let's say it's a sensuality thing, and the vehicle responds, but the mind can step in and talk it out of it. It can either step in, and the mind can step in and get the vehicle's mind on something else until that sensuality feeling subsides, which is a very difficult thing, but it will eventually fade. But it has to do it as soon as it begins to feel it. I'm talking about the mind. If you wait too long, then it might be more difficult to do. And this applies to anything. If you have any any kind of conflict with another individual, as soon as once you recognize that the conflict is there, and you try to do something about it, and the other person is willing to do the same thing, then the conflict goes away. But if you don't do it, if one wants to do it and the other doesn't, then you're hanging on to that conflict. So this applies to everything. But all you're doing is going through exercise, bringing the mind to the surface, and in the process you're doing this task that was given to you to do. You understand me? Somebody? She mentioned like all the nutrition the movie? Yes.
The trouble that the people had putting it together?
Yes.
Well, it's part of that we can't explain very well. It's like the conflict of mental energy. You know, when we say we might, if there's some negativity around us, sometimes in some people it almost seems to be attracted toward aiming their energy at us, but it's not always the case. We don't really know how that works. It'll be interesting. It's not necessary to our task to know how that works. Now that film, Close Encounters, we feel that at the lab that was involved in that would take it out of, we would say it was more involved with trying to educate a change in thinking. It's like it was an effort, I feel, that lab was trying to say, people wake up and realize that what you talk about at the church is the same thing as what others talk about as beings from heaven. It was trying to say, they're the same thing. Can't you wake up and see that? And they do this in nearly all these space films, except the ones that are very against space. But all the pro-space films are trying to educate them to see that the religion is the same thing. That when you talk about the heavens, it's the heavens. And creatures who live in heaven are the same thing as ones who come from the heavens. But they see their little brains can't quite make that adjustment yet, even though some are, and like a lot of young people who go to church today, I think that they realize it's the same thing. Same thing.
I think what, and this is only guessing, but I think what we were trying to say was that we were surprised I think we started talking about this movie, this one that you saw last week or week before last. And I felt like something was on that film that was from the next level.
Absolutely.
Because I've never watched a movie that put me to sleep. Well, maybe some, but not in that way. You know, it just sucked the energy out of it. And as soon as we turned it off, I was okay. And so, we watched it for an hour and a half, and as soon as it, or maybe not that long, but about half of it, and as soon as we turned it off, I asked Doe, I said, can't we watch it? Turn it off and watch it another time, because I can't keep my eyes on it. So we turned it off, and I thought, well, I could hardly make it to go down. And as soon as it went off, I got okay. And the same thing happened the next night. So, but I kept my eyeball, open and watched it through the energy that it was drawing out of it. Now,
but you had to be concerned with working against the problem of the vehicle feeling that way, which took away a little bit from her interest in the film, you see, because she had to be preoccupied.
Right.
That's like when you're preoccupied with heavy eyelids here, it can't help but distract you.
But I think it's the closeness at the next level that we were implying, I may be wrong, that causes the humans to go haywire sometimes. And everything happens that wouldn't happen under normal circumstances.
You know, nothing, when we try to talk to you about something that the brains aren't familiar with that level of thinking, you know what we're talking about? Like we've tried to talk to you about subjects and we've said, no, this is really hard to get out because the brain doesn't want to function at this level. Do you follow that? Okay, what these films had to say, that film and even Close Encounters, it's not in the human brain. It has not been in the human brain to take those steps. And that would be one reason why you would think that there was, or it would have appeared to be, a lot of adversity. Like a lot of people giving up on this project or conflict. It may not have been negativity at all. It might have just been because they couldn't force their brains to cooperate at a level which they had never exercised their energies before. Can you follow that?
But it's still going into the in other words, it isn't wasted because with the task that you're doing, they will grow to understand it.
Don't you think that, like you've talked about frequency that comes at meeting, don't you think that more important was the frequency that went out on that film than the words actually said or the pictures actually shown?
Well, the words, there wasn't anything on that last movie. Why did it put me to sleep? It wasn't that bad of a movie. Really, I've seen worse.
We don't know. We don't know.
It's just like he used to take all the energy from me when you talk at meetings up to a certain level. Become a vacuum
just with such intensity to get out. And if I didn't have enough energy, I would, without even, I certainly didn't want to do it, didn't know I was doing it, but I also began to learn how not to do it. Because I knew that if I got too intense, I would be borrowing where I didn't need to borrow.
This was happening with us before we even left the first time, right after we began to work together. Remember that time we were on this radio station, this radio program?
Remember when T told you when we had no place, we were talking about reincarnation on a talk show?
And they'd ask me a question, and I just...
and I was so intense about listening and answering. I felt so responsible and so intense about listening and asking that I just sucked it right.
They'd ask me a question, and I'd go, Like I said, and then I would step in and start talking to cover for you, you know. But that was the level that we were on at that time.
Didn't know any better.
This is the same level. In other words, evidently there's something in me that is that humans can draw from, or they can draw from, that's just above the human level. You know what I mean? The next step up that is in that movie, and whoever sees that movie can draw upon it if they think about it. What's so good about it? As they think about it, they draw from it.
If they're interested, if they're taking that frequency in.
Would our strain have been doing that that night as we were watching? Is that
No, we were watching at a different time. Oh, you mean your strain? Yes, it's
That's why
possible.
we were
At
feeling
a later time.
To move.
In other words, if your strain had been interested as they viewed it,
Yes.
that they were still sapping because they were still talking about it and so forth. Possible. I wish I knew what happened. What happens when your vehicles are down? But we've never gotten the next level. Never let that information come into our consciousness because I know that sometimes when your next, because I know that your next level minds, for the most part, are not there. And I know that the mind of your vehicle is still there. Believe it or not, I know that the mind of the vehicle is still there. It has just kind of moved into kind of moved outside. But I believe it even talks when you're during that period, it even is responsible at times for your vehicle playing tapes that are inappropriate. If you can understand that at least I hold it responsible.
That could be something. They're doing something else. But, you know what I think?
How much?
I think they're involved in their task. You know what I mean? In other words, I think you work on your strain, so to speak. I don't believe that you, you know what's the matter? Does that not make sense?
Oh, yes. I just had a picture that when you get through.
Well, I don't know if I can go any further. Maybe.
This has occurred to me, but I thought it was fantasy, so I just dropped it. And it may be. But sometimes I think that that what you do in your craft is dress rehearsal. And that you go through exactly the same things. Your next level mind go through exactly the same things while you're down. And it's not just dress rehearsal. It's performance. In other words, dress rehearsal is when you have an opportunity to clean up your act. You know what we're saying? And either that or it's the reverse. Either that or it's the reverse. And when you're down, you're dress rehearsing, trying to convince yourself to have the strength to overcome the vehicle when the performance comes up the next day of the actual experience. That's probably more what it is.
That's the way it should be.
Do you understand? In other words, if when you're down, your next level mind is very possibly going through the exact things that you're going to go through tomorrow. The exact things that you're going to go through tomorrow. And that's why some might even get glimpses of it in little funny ways that, you know, you would call premonition or something funny. Yeah, it just comes. And then, because the funny thing is, we think when you are put to we have a kind of consciousness that when you do something in the lab and it goes wrong, we feel like you have already rehearsed it, and why did you let it go wrong? You see what we're saying? It's like we feel like it was even brought to your attention that that was going to be the barrier. And when the barrier showed itself, why did you treat it that way? Do you see what we're saying? As if what you prepared during your sleep showed you what the potential hazards of the next day would be. And that if you looked at them properly, then you would be on guard for them when they occur in their performance. And you wouldn't let them happen. You see what we're saying? Which means when your next level mind comes back in, that you didn't do your sermon well enough on the mind of a vehicle. You didn't develop its caution. You didn't say, you're going to... this wouldn't come into your conscious mind. This wouldn't come into your conscious mind. It comes into your subconscious mind. That your next level mind would be saying to the mind of the vehicle, you're going to be on guard for this, you're going to be cautious about this, you're not going to let this happen, because I know all the potential, the possible hazards that are ahead of me for that day. Now, the way it will come into your conscious mind is when you get to that moment of the potential hazard, and something says, oops, the spotlight's on me. Here is an opportunity for me to turn things around or to let the potential hazard take over. You follow that?
That's right.
Okay. You can turn the table. A note, a verbal note through set 3 to you that Links have been thinking about why we can't see labs or why we can't see the next level. And then we challenged you to see if you could come up with why. And we gave you a word clue. And that word clue was what? Programming. Okay. Well, who's got the answer? Everybody?
What is that?
Don't be scared.
Programming of the vehicle is not capable of comprehending or understanding or seeing the lab.
Well, there are too many R's in there. See, if you've got the answer, you got to be more specific.
The programming of the computer is not capable of computing any information that it might be confronted with regarding what the labs are and how they work. And
Okay, now the question was about what? What were we talking about? We said why we can't what? See. So for right now, all we're talking about is seeing. So when you said maybe our programming, we aren't capable of computing, what do you mean?
yeah, I guess I should say seeing.
Well, okay, so what does that mean?
That even if the labs were right there in the presence of the vehicle, it wouldn't be able to see it
Why?
because it's programmed to interpret it as something else.
Not quite. You're on the track. You're on the right track. So, buddy?
The vehicle doesn't have the programming to be able to see it. In other words, even though the frequency is coming to the vehicle can't interpret it. It doesn't have the machinery to programming to interpret it.
Why is the frequency coming to the vehicle?
The frequency, in other words, whatever is out there is emitting frequency. And it comes to, like all vehicles, you, us, and everybody, but our machine doesn't have the facility.
Why? Why doesn't it?
It wasn't designed that way.
Okay, let's get more specific. And you're on the right track. You're right so far. You're right, and you went a little further. And what can you add?
Well, I'd like to know that even through our work, the signals we're sending out some of the basic programming that bring humans up a notch and make them ready to receive more programming.
That's true, but that's another subject. Conodi?
This vehicle, possibly a new vehicle, has the ability to register a frequency if a certain part of the mechanism, say in the brain, is eventually activated. But it might not be done.
Okay, well, that's true, but let's go back to the cue that you were given, the clue that you were given, which was programming, and we started out right, but we just didn't carry it far enough. January?
I don't know if I say anything different from what Cody said. I thought it was the vehicle itself kind of like a little robot, which is a computer. This level is programmed, it's given it a program.
That's true. This is essentially the answer of what Janodi's saying, but you've got to think of all the implications of that. And so we'll talk about it a minute, and then if it doesn't answer your questions, then we'll take some more questions on it. But if you would, maybe one way to think about it that might make it a little clearer is to think that the first human vehicle or any other vehicle, whether it's human or whatever it is, that when it's programmed for everything that it can sense. It's programmed for in detail everything. It's like you would write down a list, and you said, now the human vehicle will be able to feel this, and certain ones will be left out. Like now, as you know, the human vehicle cannot register, does not know that it's hearing certain frequencies that are out of the range of, that you could say out of the range of its mechanism of its ears. But it's because it's not programmed to hear that range of frequencies. Now, it's just like the next level I said, I wish the chairs could stop squeaking. It's like the next level said when they started with primitive humans, they said, now they'll be able to see green grass, blue water, and all the list of everything they could see. And there was probably even, just for analogy's sake, there was probably even a tiny chip that they put in the computer that permitted bluegrass, so forth, so on. And the absence of those chips would cause a malfunction. And such a malfunction, even so that the eyes would become deficient in certain vehicles that had deficiency and you couldn't distinguish colors. Because somewhere that chip involving color was malfunctioning. Now, we feel like that they, knowing what they were doing, they left out lots of chips. And now, this also implies that everything that humans know, everything that they know, has been programmed. It has been given to them to know. Now, they also gave them a big problem because they gave them the ability to take what they have been given and to mix it and abuse it and make options on how they use it. you see what we're saying? They, it's like the next level can give you ingredients for a cake and proportions that would make something good, but you still, once you've received all those items and they are in your computer, then you still have been given the ability, because you have a chip that says I can also manipulate and change the proportions, because I've been given that ability. That's one of the things I've been given, so that I can grow as an individual. I've been given the ability to abuse, to mismatch, to mix, to make poison out of something that could have been perfect. You see what we're saying? Because that freedom was also a chip given to them. Did you want to ask something at this point? Now, you got any questions on that before we go to something else?
That freedom would be what you call free will.
Well, he said that freedom would be what humans call free will. Well, humans think they have the free will to do anything. They think they even have the free will to discover something. And they don't, there's nothing human has ever discovered. Human has never discovered anything, any more than the dog has discovered anything. Okay? The dog hasn't discovered anything, and the human has discovered nothing. Every inventor's idea, everything that you can think of was given to them. Now, some things are, now that doesn't mean, now don't start drawing conclusions and make everything black and white, or think that the information comes down and it suddenly becomes tappable by everyone. Certain information might be given, if it's designed to be tappable, then it might be tappable in maybe a given area, or maybe all over, or maybe it is directed at one individual. And they say, now you are going to, I'm going to carefully direct you, and you're going to get up and you're going to fly kite, and we're going to call it electricity. What? In other words, they would pick individuals. Every single thing that humans know has been given to them at the time they discovered it. Now, they're also, there's no adventurers. Let's take adventurers, or let's take explorers. Those are people who walk through the wilderness, or take ships through, so forth. Even that is also carefully given to them. Now, if it's given to them, they are incapable of going in a track that was not given to them. Now, they can take that track and abuse it and mix it, and back to the thing we were talking about a few minutes ago. But if say for example that the next level was for some reason protecting a particular area on the surface of the globe, it would never occur to anyone to go in that area or to that direction. Because in order for them to do it, it has to occur to them to do it. And nothing starts here as an occurrence. It is given to them. Now, a lot of things are given that stay in the category of being given, and they're passed down in the genes of the vehicle. And they even become obsolete and outdated, so that man will stop doing some of the things that was given to them to do a long time ago. And they are even given to the knowledge to recognize that when so many other things are given, that they can look back and say, well, these must take the place of those, or since we have these, we don't really need those. But that doesn't even always occur. You don't have to accept it. You could still be an Amish driving a cart pulled by a horse. if you refuse to accept new things as they're given to you. You follow what we're saying? So, a craft, for example, let's talk about labs. We feel like labs could be any shape or form that a lab needs to be for its function. In other words, that would depend upon how many it would house and what they would do while they were in it. It might be the shape of a very, very tall building, but it wouldn't have to be rooted. But it still may sit in one particular place for a long period of time if its task is still needed in that place. But if it were ever needed for it not to be there, it is movable. Not by spiritual, God moved it and it moved. It's by technical advancement of abilities and skills of the next level. Now we feel that the next level has given little tiny temporary chips at a certain tiny little glimpses of them of the next level at times to probably see how they react. Now, if you remember Lost in or Missing Time and other things that you've read, 99% of sightings that anybody has ever had was not computable, only recallable. It didn't compute. And even the mechanism of recall under hypnosis, we believe is not a reliable mechanism. Do you follow what we say? Now, there are accidents that can occur. Let's say, for example, that a plane is flying, and it's okay for it to get here, but over here is a lab, and this plane is going, and suddenly the plane gets off of the course that was designed for it to get on because of an accident. If it is an accident. I mean, because many times what appears to be an accident by human evaluation we feel like is not an accident at all. But let's say if indeed it is an accident, then the next level would have actual, technical, mechanical, physical means of protecting themselves. Now, T mentioned that as possibility at certain times humans might have gotten glimpses of things that they theoretically maybe shouldn't have because the crew let their guard down at the moment. In other words, can you understand that? Even though we can't believe that it made any difference, or they wouldn't have been in a circumstance where they would be permitted to do something where their guard, in other words, the security wasn't that significant, or they wouldn't have been sent to a place where they could make that mistake if indeed a mistake was made. Do you follow that? So if you think back that everything that a human can perceive is actually because he has been programmed to see it and to sense it and to think about it. And as the next level directs the change in humans, they give them the appropriate new programs that will help them move forward. Now, it would disrupt everything imaginable if human vehicles could see what's going on in the next level. They wouldn't do anything but stand and watch.
They'd be watching it, be telling them what to do.
Well, and if they could get in their way, like T says, they'd be telling them what to do. If they couldn't get to them, they'd just stand and watch because their interest would be only on what they were seeing because it would be like a bonanza. It would be like seeing such advanced technology in motion that they would just be God, whatever it is, whatever the saying is. But so you can see that they shouldn't see it. Now, the only thing we are permitted to even know, in order to not leave improper thought, we are only permitted to see this on the level of speculation. So that if we left these thoughts and others picked up on those thoughts at their level of receiving or perceiving what we had picked up on, they would only see it as speculation. If we saw it and knew what we were seeing while in these vehicles and still had time to remain here, these vehicles would be admitting all of that knowledge. You couldn't stop them. Do you follow what we're saying? And we feel like it's not permitted. And it's a safeguard. And why would the next level, if they wanted it to happen, then they would let you see them and let that be transmitted. Now this does not mean they are invisible. Well, it does mean that they're invisible to the vehicle eyes, but it does not mean that their molecular structure is any less solid than the molecular structure of your vehicle, though they may have, by this time, developed a technical skill, or if they want to make molecular structure for any reason, separate. You say, well, buildings and all, then you mean they have crews that go out and build buildings and hammer? Of course, that's thinking in very crude terms. Have you ever thought about how this, do you know how particle beam works? Have you read it in the magazines? Well, the next level has recently given the humans the beginnings of how to destroy something without blowing up a city in the process. Like a nuclear bomb, you can't. If you make a major destruction, it has such a side effect, such far-reaching side effects that it destroys lots of things. Now, humans are just beginning to get knowledge on how they can destroy something without affecting all of the surroundings. Now, think of that in reverse. If a human has now been given the information to design something that can destroy something, change its molecular structure, and dissipates into just all but nothing, almost nothing, then think of that if a member of the next level is sitting and designs a structure, a lab, for example, on paper, next level architect. He puts it in the machine. The machine puts it in 10 other machines. And the byproduct, instead of destroying, makes. In other words, it materializes according to the instructions of the architect. If it was to be 1,072 feet tall, made of X material, and so forth and so on, down to the finest detail, as soon as it had passed through all the corridors of the computers, next level type computers, and got to the final product, it's created right on the spot, even to the computer that decided where it was going to be materialized. It would materialize right there. Now that's not spiritual. That's advanced technology. Now, do you understand what we're saying? Because only a superstitious, primitive human would, even if they could see it, they would see it spiritually, because they wouldn't know what happened. And that's why mankind, anytime they have had any evidence of next level, they see it as in that way. They see creation in that way. They see the actions of God, so to speak, in a way that are so miraculous because they can't compute how it happened. They aren't familiar with the knowledge or the machinery or anything else. Even the person with the ability to design those machines knew how to have them actually materialize upon their design, even the machines that were capable of doing the materialization. Now, that makes you feel kind of stupid, doesn't it? Not you. Because you're listening through the ears and putting it in the brain. You got a little bit of next level mind in a very primitive little house, listening to things that sound far-reaching. But you know what? The beauty is that your little primitive house is capable of almost recognizing the reality of this. But it has to remain almost. If you understand why? Because if it could actually recognize it as fact, if you could actually perform any of it, it would mess everything up. In other words, here again, this has to remain within the bounds of speculation for safeguard at the next level.
Well, when Doe talked about it being on computer, what comes with your vehicle is everything comes out on paper or a printer from computers. But he's talking about other methods that you don't even know about and humans do not know about. So there's a big gap.
There's a great big
gap that isn't, in other words, the blanks aren't going to be filled in.
Oh.
And it's just like with this vehicle, what knowledge, the mind, the next level mind that is in this vehicle does not know any of the technical things of the next level. And that's because the next level is protective of that knowledge. Now the mind that is not in this vehicle, that part of my next level mind that is not in this vehicle, knows just about everything, knows too much. Doesn't know everything, but I mean knows a lot more. And
knows too much for the human being.
That's right. And so therefore, there's a protection to the next level. And the knowledge that they have, it will not be given to this vehicle to know and then passed on. Because then it could get into the ether and be told before, or be known before its time. But what Doe talked about, you can think about it. And in the process of his talking about it, I could see a lot of gaps. But I also know what's in between those gaps. And but I could not fill in the gaps because we don't have the ability to do that.
Shouldn't.
And that's because it's like the cake ingredient, you know. They leave out the things that would put it into action before it's done. But creation, that is the key right there. What Doe talked about is the way the next level creates.
Makes things instead of hammers and nails and
They
wood.
just don't do things
concrete.
the humans do. Now, the scientists can say this garden was the result of an explosion. They can call it whatever they want to. But we know differently.
Well, we feel like the next level gave them that idea. And
What
they,
were they?
there's no idea they have, true or false, that the next level didn't give them. Next level gives them, has a lesson plan of what to give them. And then when they get ready for a little bit more, they give them a little bit more, and pretty soon they realize that what they had 20 years ago doesn't make any sense. So the labs, the point is, can you see how busy the labs are? Because every single thing that comes in is given. I mean, it took an action. It didn't take someone sitting on a throne saying, well, I think now I'm ready to let them know about this and this and this and this, and poof, you know. I mean, it cooperation. It takes office work. If you can put that in the right, in next level thinking, it takes a design. It takes timing. It takes careful handling. Like if it's time to give an individual a certain information on something, that the individual chosen to receive that information has